Socrates was born around 470 BCE in Athens, a city known for its intellectual and cultural vibrancy. Despite the turmoil of the Peloponnesian War and the decline of the Athenian Empire, Socrates stood out not for any written works. He wrote nothing, but for his conversations, questioning, and relentless pursuit of wisdom. His unique method of inquiry, now called the Socratic method, is still revered in modern education and philosophy. By asking probing questions, Socrates led people to examine their beliefs and, more importantly, the foundations of those beliefs. His philosophy centered around the idea that virtue is the highest good and that knowledge is inseparable from moral conduct. He argued that if one truly knows what is right, one will do what is right, therefore, evil comes from ignorance. This idea runs contrary to the modern notion that people knowingly commit wrongdoings. According to Socrates, no one willingly harms themselves, and since wrongdoing ultimately harms the soul, it must arise from a lack of understanding. In this way, his philosophy connects wisdom directly to ethical behavior, a principle sorely needed today as we grapple with moral ambiguity and a culture of self-interest. Socrates' belief in the unity of virtue and knowledge offers a profound insight into human behavior that transcends time. One of Socrates' most famous ideas is that virtue is the greatest good. He emphasized that material wealth, physical pleasure, and even public honor were all secondary to the cultivation of virtue. In a consumer-driven world, Socrates' teachings are strikingly relevant. Today, many chase after wealth and status, mistakenly equating these things with happiness. Yet, Socrates believed that true happiness came from living a life of moral integrity. By pursuing truth, justice, and self-control, a person could achieve eudaimonia, what the Greeks understood as a flourishing life, one filled with meaning and purpose. Socrates often challenged his fellow Athenians to question their pursuit of power and wealth at the expense of virtue. He is richest who is content with the least, for contentment is the wealth of nature, he would say. This simple yet profound idea challenges modern-day consumerism and the insatiable desire for more. In a world where success is often measured by accumulation, Socrates reminds us that fulfillment is not found in external possessions but in internal harmony. Contentment, according to him, comes from knowing oneself and living in accordance with one's values. Another cornerstone of Socratic philosophy is his unwavering belief in the importance of self-knowledge. His famous quote, "Know thyself," remains a central tenet of philosophy and psychology. Socrates believed that without understanding oneself, it is impossible to live a meaningful or virtuous life. Self-awareness, to him, was the path to wisdom. He urged people to reflect deeply on their desires, motivations, and moral choices. In today's fast-paced world, where people are often more focused on outward achievements than inward reflection, Socrates' call to self-knowledge is more important than ever. We live in a time where distractions abound, yet true peace and fulfillment come from within, from understanding who we are at our core. Socrates' philosophy also emphasized the pursuit of truth above all else. He was famously skeptical of those who claimed to possess ultimate knowledge or wisdom, often engaging in dialogue with the sophists, teachers who charged for their knowledge but often promoted relativism, arguing that truth was subjective and could change depending on the situation. Socrates disagreed, believing that truth is objective and worth striving for, even if it's difficult to grasp fully. He dedicated his life to questioning those who claimed to have definitive answers about justice, virtue, and the gods, often revealing the limitations of their understanding. This devotion to truth ultimately led to his trial and execution. In 399 BCE, Socrates was accused of corrupting the youth of Athens and introducing strange gods. The charges were, in essence, a reflection of his constant questioning of traditional values, which made the powerful uncomfortable. During his trial, Socrates could have easily begged for mercy or fled the city. Instead, he stood firm in his principles. In his famous defense, recorded in Plato's Apology, Socrates compared himself to a gadfly, a small creature that stings and provokes a much larger animal, in this case, the Athenian state. "I am that gadfly which God has attached to the state," he said, claiming that his role was to challenge the people of Athens to awaken from their complacency and think critically about their lives and society. During the trial, Socrates fearlessly told the jury that he would not stop questioning and seeking truth, even if it led to his death. He maintained that he was fulfilling a divine mission, given by the oracle of Delphi, who had proclaimed him the wisest of all men. Socrates interpreted this to mean that he was wise because he alone recognized his ignorance. When sentenced to death, he famously stated, "The hour of departure has arrived, and we go our ways, I to die, and you to live. Which is better, God only knows." This powerful reflection on life and death highlights his belief that fearing death is irrational because we do not know what lies beyond it. It echoes in modern discussions about mortality, reminding us to focus on living virtuously rather than fearing the inevitable. Socrates' death was as iconic as his life. He was sentenced to drink hemlock, a poison, and faced his execution calmly, discussing philosophy with his followers until the very end. He rejected offers to escape and reiterated his belief in living and dying by the principles he had always upheld. His trial and execution are often seen as a tragic end to a life devoted to truth, but they also immortalized him as a martyr for free thought and intellectual integrity. In today's world, Socrates' teachings hold profound relevance. We live in an era where information is abundant, but wisdom is often lacking. We are quick to form opinions and slow to question them. Socrates challenges us to embrace doubt, to understand that certainty can often be the enemy of truth. His method of critical questioning reminds us of the importance of dialogue, especially in a time where polarization and echo chambers dominate public discourse. In a society driven by materialism, Socrates' emphasis on virtue as the highest good calls us to reconsider our values. Are we chasing wealth and recognition at the cost of our own integrity? Are we living examined lives, as Socrates urged, or are we merely going through the motions, distracted by the trivialities of modern existence? Socrates' life and philosophy offer us timeless wisdom. His relentless search for truth, his call to self-examination, and his courage to stand firm in his principles are lessons that resonate across the ages. In a world that often prizes convenience and comfort over truth, his example serves as a beacon, urging us to live examined, purposeful lives. Thanks for listening. Nate.